There's never been a meaningful discussion of AI as an asset.
Trump is poetic in his language, as we like to say. But when it comes to his campaign platform, he kind of views it as a contract.
It sounds like either a fuel additive or something you're going to get that's a derivative of Mpox. I mean,
That balloon was helping to increase the accuracy of Chinese hypersonic missiles.
Welcome to the Crypto Swamp Creatures, the show you never knew you needed and still don't want anyways. I'm Christopher Alexander, your blockchain and advocacy communications expert.
And I'm Justin Wallin, your guide through the often murky world of politics and polling.
Every week, we dive into the intersection of crypto, policy, and politics without taking sides. We're here to give you the straight, data-driven analysis that influences the decisions of those who want to win or want to be elected.
Think of it as a late 80s newscast, but with a twist. We bring you the serious stuff, but with a dash of sardonic wit and just a hint of a reference.
So whether you're a crypto enthusiast, a policy wonk, or just someone who appreciates a data-driven approach, this is your place.
We bring you both sides, weigh the impact on crypto, and then we share what we use for show prep every week on our medium.
So remember, no one is as smart as someone who agrees with you, and now get ready to enter the no swamp zone.
Welcome to Crypto Swamp Creatures, where we're not afraid to take on big challenges. In fact, today, Justin Wallin and I are going to attempt to make the federal bureaucracy interesting. But before we start, Justin, let me ask you a question. I'm sure you've seen these signs like all over Bethesda, but do you believe in science?
Like a religion?
An article of faith, for example? Like perhaps you have a St. Fauci candle. Those were great from the people, the science people.
I love those things. Anytime belief is used with something, you do have to recognize that you're talking about faith. And science is a lot of theory, but that doesn't translate into faith because there would have to be some preternatural being behind it, right? Presumably. And it doesn't. It has testing and retesting and proof and failures and this sort of approach to science would be well appreciated, I think, by the American people. It was one of the kickbacks from this past election. A lot of dissatisfaction with how science was treated and how people who question science were treated in a deeply unscientific way.
Well, there is a somewhat preternatural or mythical creature involved in science right now, and his name is Donald Trump. And he, despite being allegedly anti-science, probably a fan of leeching, certainly a evil dictator, Trump just made a very interesting appointment to something that can really affect crypto prices and the industry in ways that people may not realize. And it's something called OSTP. Even I struggle after the many years in the military, which is the Office of Science. I gotta look down. Science and Technology Policy. And
by things in the government, bless their hearts, it sounds like either a fuel additive or something you're going to get that's a derivative of Mpox. I mean, it just Why does that have so many syllables?
By the way, if you had Richard Petty for OSTP, that would be pretty awesome. But
right.
These offices are unusual in that they have small staffs. In fact, OSTP staff is actually, I think, borrowed from other agencies. I think their total budget's only about $10 million. But what they do has an outsized impact on industry. And in this case, what OSTP does is it is sort of the central focal point for the president to consider research and technology grants and investments all throughout the federal government. So when we talk about high performance computing and we think of cryptocurrencies as a component of that, this office is extremely important. And the person that they appointed, which is also another Michael Kratsios, is really, really interesting. He's a huge AI guy, but also, as I understand it, he's a nuke fan. And so, there's a series of key offices that look at fiscal policy, that look at grid infrastructure, energy related components. that look specially at high performance computing. And they are all pretty well aligned, and they're all covering different aspects of this. So perhaps better Bitcoin miners, more efficient hash rate, better power for the grid, and researching that. Mini nukes. If they don't get into mini nukes, I'll boil my shoe and eat it. Like I guarantee you're gonna see that, and I hope to, by the way. So it's really, really interesting. So it's OSTP, and it's outsized in its impact, if not. Well, I'm sure they would argue understaffed and underfunded.
Yeah, but the fact that it's getting attention right now can't be understated or undervalued. The last administration, the last Trump administration, leadership wasn't appointed until 2 years into the administration, right? It was absolutely not a focus. And it has been appointed now before the inauguration. There's leadership, there's direction, there's coordination. This is, you're absolutely right. It's a small organization with a very small comparative budget, but it's a critical, influential, and effective organization that its appointment and attention belies the administration's focus on this space. It's a very, very good thing.
Yeah, there's two pieces, and we're going to talk about that in another segment. It's OSTP, and then something called the PCAST, which we'll get into and then see how far down our views drop. But what's I think the most interesting about Kratsios actually is he's put culture warriors, fire breathers, Trump in key positions, or nominated them: Secretary of Defense, Justice, FBI. He's got some people that are lightning rods. But in the case of Natsios is something of an insider. He understands this stuff as he needs to.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And so is his number one, who has 2 decades of experience at a top school in academia, highly respected people with highly respected track records in this space. They're not being plucked from another kind of skill set and dropped in there to kind of drive ideology. That happens a lot in political appointments. And I don't throw stones at it. That's what happens a lot in political appointments. This is just, but in this case, that's not. You're taking people who are proven experts in this space right away before swearing in and getting things rolling. So it's tremendous news for the industry. It's tremendous.
And Kratsios oversees, by the way, a $200 billion federal research budget. And his AI background suggests that is going to be a very, very heavy focus. And there's some fault lines, perhaps, that people don't realize. I went to an event years ago where some pretty, we'll certainly call them rock-ribbed conservatives, were really starting to go after the National Science Foundation. And at first I was like, what? Creationism jokes kind of started bubbling in the back of my mind. But then they began to outlay the fact that different congressional research entities produce these studies. They pay universities to conduct the research, and good luck getting a research funded that says a program that the federal government likes doesn't work. It's the DoD, what they call a self-licking ice cream cone. And so what's going to be very interesting to see, particularly like at the NSF, is the social science heavy programs. A lot of those are along the lines of equity, inclusion, and the like, and different impacts. Are they going to see their budgets cut and that money move over to more hard sciences and AI? We were talking about when you look at the agency mission, it's going to be very interesting. I don't know if it'll happen on the 20th in January exactly, but within a month, go look at the websites of the different entities as the Trump administration comes in. Most government agencies have equity listed in one of their 5 kind of key mission areas. You're likely going to see that drop. And what you see it replaced with is really going to help kind of read the tea leaves, because it's the administration setting its agenda.
Yeah, and to that end, it's a little bit of a dogleg, but up until this point, most of government, and you and I have done a lot of work with different government branches and advising them and so forth. Most of their discussion about AI has been one of AI as either an annoyance or potential threat, a liability, right? How can we be hurt by the use of AI? And that's a perfectly reasonable aspect of one point of the discussion, right? You want to be sure that the government is custodial of a lot of Americans' information, and of course they want to make sure that they protect that. Perfectly fine, but there's never been a meaningful discussion, at least to the in the branches that I've worked with, of AI as an asset. And this is a huge pivot for the federal government. It's a huge pivot for the industry, and it's good. It speaks well of what's going to happen, unfold over the next 4 years. Of course, we can't peer into the future, but this is a pretty good indicator.
Absolutely, I think it comes down to this: the Trump administration is focused. Let's say, I don't want to speak with hyperbole, but focused on AI powering high performance computing and cryptocurrency. And then they mean it. They're creating whole new councils and advisory, let's call them commissions. Technically they're not, but around this topic. So, we talked before the election about how Trump is poetic in his language, as we like to say. But when it comes to his campaign platform, he kind of views it as a contract that he shouldn't be breaking. And so, there's no doubt he's very serious about cryptocurrency and about AI. And, frankly, I think computer processing power, if we boil it down, is top 3 national security issues, maybe number 1. It's how we counter China. It's how we defeat China in a future battlefield, one they're openly preparing for. I don't know if you saw Winnie the Pooh, the ruler of China, just recently said that no one was going to interfere with them returning Taiwan to China. So there's plenty of saber rattling from our friends in China,
and increasingly so. It's very, very much a frog being boiled over there. It's easy to think that the rhetoric that's being used today is very similar to the rhetoric that's being used 20 years ago, and that's just not true. It is very, very hot, and the activity of all the aggressive assets floating around there is getting frightening, quite frankly. And there's a whole lot of ancillary stuff, and you know this far better than I. But everything from enforcement of really assuming rights to fishing areas, ramming Philippine fishing boats, all these sorts of things, highly aggressive behavior. It's not just military exercises surrounding Taiwan, although those have been ramped up significantly. The world is changing very quickly over there, and it is not the world that we looked at 20 years ago.
It's not, and I don't think we've had our little devolving into spooky talk in a long time. I guess maybe I do that more on the DYOR show, but that weather balloon that floated across the country, it had a purpose that wasn't widely reported, if at all. When you have a hypersonic missile, the tiniest factor that could affect the trajectory of the missile can cause it to get way, way off because the speed it's moving. So there are pockets of air in the atmosphere that you can map out almost like currents and eddies in the ocean. And that's what that balloon was doing. That balloon was helping to increase the accuracy of Chinese hypersonic missiles. And in defense of the administration, if they even ever actually told the president, which now there's reporting that maybe, I don't know when he actually knew about it, you can't just randomly shoot it down. It's like these drones. You can't just shoot them down and wherever they land on things, people, innocent people. So that was an open provocation from the Chinese, that balloon. They believe they're in a much more heated competition with us than for some reason we're willing to recognize. I guess it has to do with the fact that your iPhone says designed in California rather than made in China. But suffice to say, it's going to be an interesting time in terms of relations with China. And that, of course, affects Bitcoin hugely, as the president would like to say, because who does most of the mining by percentage and who produces virtually all of the Bitcoin miners? Well, that would be China. So it's going to be another thing that's going to be very interesting over the next year to see what happens with China next 4 years. and the impact that could have on U.S. Bitcoin mining. I don't know how much it affects the price, other than instability now kind of drives Bitcoin price down, it seems, rather than up. But the national security side of this could have an impact.
And that's all for this week on the Crypto Swamp Creatures.
We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the intersection of crypto, politics, and policy.
Remember, the data doesn't lie, and neither do we. Well, not about anything important anyways.
Until next time, stay informed, stay skeptical, stay out of the swamp.